upgrading the roof, a new kitchen, or a shed. When it comes to contract work, German craftsmen are highly valued in the UK because, unlike their British colleagues, they enjoy an excellent reputation. But the mainstay that several German companies have built up in Great Britain is now threatening to break away. And the reason, as with so many economic issues, is Brexit. The provision of on-site services is almost only possible with a visa, and the visa regulations are very restrictive, says Karl Martin Fischer from the foreign trade consultancy Germany Trade and Invest. Simply cross the English Channel and start working, or even quick deliveries across borders. That was the situation for decades. We were spoiled, says Andreas Pauli, managing director of Wagen, Pauli and Felbert. But that's over. There would be a visa for tradespeople that sounds like a perfect fit. As a contractual service supplier, that means for the provision of contractual services. But, explains Fischer, a university degree is required for this visa. That means at least a bachelor's degree. The fact that the German master craftsman diploma is on an equal footing with a bachelor's degree helps only to a limited extent, says the expert. Because in case of doubt, it will not be the master who provides the service, but in case of doubt, he will want to send someone and stay at home himself. But that's not at all. A sponsorship license, a kind of financial guarantee, is required from the British client side. This has to be applied for at the British Home Office. It costs a lot of money, time and administrative effort. Finally, there is a UK national reservation for the construction industry, so London does not currently guarantee market access. Most of the German craftsmen in Great Britain work in the building trade. For them, a comparison applies that Fischer makes to the Brexit treaty. Imagine you are 60 years old, about to retire. You have always eaten with a good appetite and then try again to get into your confirmation suit, says the expert. This is how you have to imagine the agreement in terms of services. It will tweak and pinch, and maybe it won't work at all anymore. No figures are available on the number of businesses affected. There are exceptions, for example, for machine builders who have agreed on installation or maintenance in the sales contract. These companies are still allowed to send skilled workers to the UK without a visa. Entrepreneurs are harshly criticizing the Brexit treaty, which Prime Minister Boris Johnson and EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen agreed on Christmas Eve, just a few days before the UK left the EU Customs Union and the internal market. Although nationwide tariffs were avoided, the changeover was huge. Too short-term, complains industrial plant supplier Pauli. For weeks, authorities were asked which documents are needed, he says. The responsible bodies overloaded. It's a tough blow for companies that have been working in the UK for a long time. There is frustration. The uncertainty is great. And there's no legal security, says Christian Kronen, a master carpenter from Forst. He continues to accept applications from the UK like his customers, hopes that the rules will change again. But the prospects are bad for the time being. According to the Home Office in London, immigration is not the answer to the shortage of skilled workers. The government wants to ensure that employers concentrate on investing in the qualification of our own workforce and reducing our dependency on workers from overseas, the ministry said on request. Many workers face an uncertain future. This is where the first recourse for employers with vacancies should take place, rather than seeing immigration as the primary solution, they say. There is some hope that the government has promised the introduction of a new global business mobility visa for May 2022. But until then, the Brexit obstacles threaten to dry up the business. The full extent will probably only be seen in a few months when the fight against the corona pandemic allows smooth travel again. Then some craftsmen will probably notice that Great Britain is close to them. But of course, Brexit also has more consequences. The legion of traders who have indulged Britain's bargain hunters for decades with their van loads of curios and collectibles from France fear Brexit is about to upend their specialist trade just as open markets and vintage shops are about to reopen. Importers of everything from farmhouse tables to Art Deco mirrors and vintage dresses fear they will be stymied by the complicated documentation now required for each item in their van. It is such a strange thing to have this level of restrictions and difficulty with paperwork and import and export when really what you're talking about is recycling stuff that has been covered in dust and sitting in a loft and would otherwise have been destined for the bin, said Rebecca Merrill, who runs Sunless Antiques in St. Leonards-on-Sea with her partner Adam Freeman. Previously, we traveled around France in a van, buying stock from antique fairs, suppliers we know, flea markets and other sources. We would turn up at the border and travel back to the UK without any friction at all and no added costs, Freeman said. The antiques industry could be decimated by all of this. Antique fairs in the UK are usually packed with European goods and with European dealers selling, which looks impossible now. London and the UK as a centre for trade could be wiped out, he added. And he added, many fellow traders selling for decades, spanning large-scale antiques dealers to specialist art dealers and smaller traders selling general brocante goods at UK flea markets are all yet to find a solution. Central to the challenge is the fact that customs declarations are required for each item, but also commodity numbers and the age of the antique or vintage clothing for VAT purposes. At Cruttenden, who runs the Sunbury Antiques Hyper Fair on Kempton Park, that's a racecourse in Surrey, raised another concern. Continental dealers who account for 10 to 20% of the UK market and are part of the atmosphere, as he says, would also be snagged by post-Brexit changes. He says, there's a woman who comes over who does glassware and ceramics. For her to have to itemize every piece that she's bringing is going to be a logistical minefield, Cruttenden said. Freeman said part of the problem stemmed from the fact that sellers in France were not official exporters and would not necessarily know the age or the commodity code of a dusty old armchair or lamp, which had turned up in a probate sale. Another challenge is VAT. Antiques can be 0 or 5% rated. If it were a bottle of wine, there would be a code for type of grape and alcohol content, but with antiques, it is hit and miss, leaving importing in the hands of officials who could impound or turn away goods without specialist knowledge. Say I want to declare a 1950s lamp, said Francis Fowler, a restorer in West Sussex. You put that into their search engine to get a number that you then put on the form. It doesn't come up. If you put in lighting, you're going to be subject to 20% VAT. If you put in generic antique lighting, it still doesn't come up. Kempton Park's Antiques Market reopens for the first time since the latest lockdown on April 13th, and Cruttenden is hoping the government can come with some answers, adding that he would welcome anyone to come and talk to his traders to help them navigate their future. He says, it's really a minefield. It's not black and white as to whether the dealers can get their stuff over or not. While the open markets are the lower end of the antique sector, it is not insubstantial. The Sunbury Antiques Fair at Kempton Park has about 700 sellers, with another in Newark in Nottinghamshire, the largest in Europe, attracting thousands. Freeman said the government needed to be held to account for the chaos and disruption and to the damage and cost on livelihoods and small businesses such as his. Catherine Singer, the Director of Strategy and Operations at the British Antique Dealers Association, said she hoped the UK government would find a way of dealing with traders by some kind of reworking to allow people to transport their own goods for trade purposes. Although there was undoubted disruption in the antiques market, she believed it would return to normal as shippers and dealers on both sides of the channel come to grips with Brexit. One source said some freight forwarders were among the most entrepreneurial in the export business, and some might even take a stand at Camden to help people work stuff out. HM Revenue and Customs said, there is no general relief from import charges for second-hand goods, meaning customs declarations will be required and import taxes will be due, unless any specific relief applies. While customs declarations have been required since January 1st, the UK had delayed the deadline for full declarations to be filled until next January, it added. HMRC also advised businesses to study the 6 methods of calculating customs duties applicable since Brexit, which are on a 41-part government webpage. gov.uk, you know that one. So, just one little thing about this. With all the complaints coming, and I'm just leaving out now the nonsense with the EU is trying to punish the UK for leaving. That is total BS, and who still believes this needs to see a doctor. The only reason for all of this is easy to identify. The only reason is Brexit and becoming a third country. It's that easy. But once again, like in the video before, real life, everyday life examples for consequences of Brexit. And I'm still waiting for anyone to give me a good reason why this is something good. I've still not been told an upside of Brexit and don't come with sovereignty. That is a lie that some Brexiteers are still carrying in front of them. It's just ridiculous. So, perhaps anybody positive? No? Anybody? No? Anybody? No. Okay, that was something else. If you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.